Hello, sweet friends, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Kirsten, and I really like books. February was a great reading month, and for this wrap-up video, I thought I would take you guys along with me as I fill out my 2026 book bullet journal that I have started. And then I thought I would do a quick little review of all of those books with you as well. And let's get started with this video. If you are new here, you might not know that I love collecting hobbies. And one of the hobbies that I collected last year was creating a fun book bullet journal to create more of a scrapbook type style way of remembering all of the books that I have read that year. I do use Fable and I love that as a digital tracker, but I also love being creative, and I have so many fun Bookish stickers that I get when I go shopping, or if I get book boxes that I was like, what do I do with all of these fun stickers? And that's where creating this little book journal kind of came about. This is such a fun hobby that I think every bookish girlie should get into. It's just a fun way of being creative and reflecting on all of the books that you have read. So if you have never started a journal before, I did create a video where I started and set up my journal, so make sure you go and check that one out. But let's go ahead and dive into my February spread. So this is our journal that we started in January, and it's basically been a whole month of neglect. It is time to finally get to my February spread. I have done nothing for February so far. There are still a few things from January that I need to update, but here's the thing with reading journals. There are times when I pour so much time and energy, and then other times I totally forget about it, and I'm like, right, I do have other hobbies outside of reading books that I should probably get to, and my journal is one of those. Usually before I do my title page, I love going on Pinterest and just kind of getting a little bit of inspiration for my title pages for sure, and then just any other bookish related spreads to add to my journal. So let's go ahead and see if we can find some really cute February inspo. Okay, so for some reason, I am really attracted to this little teddy bear down in the corner here. I feel like that is super cute. Oh, this is also super cute. How it's like the fuzzy hearts. I don't know if you can see that. The the candy hearts as the letters for the month of February. So maybe we'll do a combo of that because I do need something that is 2 pages wide. So we might do that as the title, and then the cute little bear down in the corner. So now that I have finished my spread, I'm actually really happy with it. I love how I'm creating more of a simple look this year compared to last year. And I think now that I've done a few months, instead of doing like extensive book reviews on all of the books that I have read, I mostly kind of use it as more of a scrapbook layout where I put down the books that I planned on reading, plus some highlights of that month with my book group and then on Instagram as well. And then the layout of the books that I've actually read is very simple. I do the calendar of how long I read each book, what days I read them, and then pictures of the books that I ended up actually reading and their star ratings underneath. Now, once I finish March, then I think I'm going to do like a quarterly wrap up or check in here where I highlight some of my favorite books that I read over those months, ones that really are still sticking with me, maybe putting a little bit more detail into some of the quotes that I loved and a few of the other aspects as well. Because sometimes I've started a series in one month and don't wrap it up till a few months later. And then I don't want to just put the one book because I want to go into detail about everything. So, like the series that comes to mind when I think about this is the Plated Prisoners series. I would love to do a whole entire spread of that one in my journal to be able to print out some of the fan art of some of the characters in there and just dive into more details. So, I feel like I'm going to do that whenever I complete a series or after every quarter to just kind of reflect on some of my reading habits, some of the series that I've loved and have stuck with me, and just fun stuff like that. So make sure you stay tuned for more journaling stuff. But now let's get into the actual books that I read in February and all of my thoughts and feelings on those books. So I ended up reading a total of 9 books in the month of February. So that's kind of what my average book reading has been, is about 8 or 9 so far. So I ended up listening to 2 audiobooks, 6 physical books, and then 1 book on my Kindle. The first book I read in the month was Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. Ali Hazelwood is one of my favorite authors ever. If she writes a book, I will read it. I almost have every book of hers on my shelf. The only ones I don't have are like her short story novella ones. But this was a 4-star book for me. Not one of my favorites of hers, but this one was definitely fun because of how quirky both of our characters are. I just find Allie's writing is both humorous. I love the chemistry and tension between her characters, but there's always some kind of deep seated message with one of her characters that make it more of a deeper read. There's usually depth to her characters, which I really enjoy reading about. And this one was no different. This one is all about a forbidden love affair between Rue and Eli. Eli's company is kind of taking over Rue's company. And so their relationship is kind of taboo when it comes to that. But they just cannot fight the chemistry and tension between the two of them. So, of course, they still end up getting together. But Rue has a lot of issues that she is going through. So she's kind of torn between the loyalty that she's created with her boss in her workplace and the passion and chemistry that she feels towards Eli. So just them navigating that was really fun and definitely a sexy read. Next, I continued on with the Plated Prisoners series. This is book 3, and this is Gleam by Raven Kennedy. And her books are so chunky that I do enjoy doing immersive reads. So that's where not only am I listening to the book, but I'm also reading it. And I kind of go back and forth between the two because of how chunky they are. But this book is where things really pick up. I know a lot of people get kind of, they don't get hooked on book 1, I think, because of some of the topics that are in there. It's very much in your face, and it might come across as like a very smut forward book. But if you continue on in the series, it is not that whatsoever. This is definitely a character driven series, I have found. So in book 1, there are some exciting things that happen. In book 2, not a lot of like exciting epic moments happen, but there's a lot of character development in book 2. And then in book 3, we get a lot of character development, but then in the end of this book, some epic things happen, which is really going to change the trajectory of where things go in this story. And in this one, we are introduced to the actual love interest in the story, and he is definitely in the market to becoming one of my favorite fantasy book boyfriends out there. I am super excited to continue this series and very interested to see if how people say this book and the next book are really good and they feel like the series could have wrapped up there and she didn't need to write the next 2 books in the series. But I'm someone that likes to form my own opinion about books, so I will be continuing this one to the very end. This book in particular was 5 stars. That's how good the storyline picked up in this particular book in the series. I had 2 5-star reads back to back. So we read Gleam, absolutely loved it. And then I finally picked up First Time Caller by B.K. Borson. And it's a crime that this sat on my shelf for an entire year before I picked it up, because I ate up everything in this book. It was so hilarious. I loved the Sleepless in Seattle vibes of it. We have our radio host, Aiden, who hosts like this romantic dating hotline show on his radio at nighttime. And then we have Lucy, whose daughter ends up calling into the radio show because she's concerned that her mom doesn't have anybody to date or to fall in love with. And so Lucy ends up going on the show with Aiden to try and find someone to date or fall in love with. And then it backfires because Aiden and Lucy obviously have strong feelings towards each other, and just the yearning and tension between the two of them in here was so cute, so hilarious. If you have not read anything by B.K. Borson before, I highly recommend this book. It was so good, and I cannot wait to pick up the next interconnected book in this series. Next, I listened to Whispers of the Deep, and I only gave this one 2 stars because I have realized that, again, I don't really like listening to like smutty books on audiobook. And because this one was a monster romance, so it's between a human and a mermaid, and things get pretty graphic in this book to the point where I was even cringing. And I read dark romance books. Like, I have read it all, but for some reason, I've just learned that monster romance is not for me, and especially not via audiobook. So the next book that I ended up reading was Daddy Issues by Kate Goldbeck. I bought this book because of the cover. Like, it is absolutely stunning. I love like the graphic comic book style of this cover, and that very much matches the content in this book. We have our main character, Sam, who has, like the book title says, daddy issues. Her dad is like a vintage collector, and particularly he loved collecting vintage comic books, and she's a very good drawer. That's kind of how she connected with her dad, was via comic books, but her dad is literally a deadbeat. He doesn't really have anything to do with Sam at all, but she has kept a hold of his comic books for him because he can't store them in his home in Florida. And I feel like she's just holding on to them as a sense of like, if I let go of these comic books, then my dad will really have no reason to love me, kind of thing. So she lives with her mom, but her mom has found a new partner, and they are wanting to sell their apartment. And then Sam, who is kind of lost in life, doesn't know what to do with herself career-wise because she's kind of waiting on this grad school or post-grad opportunity. So she's like the kid that's never moved out of their parents' basement. And her mom gets a new neighbor, Nick, who moves in next door with his daughter. This was such an interesting book because when you hear like a trope of like single dad, most of it is very much like rose-colored glasses, rainbow sunshine, like everything is magical and easy with the kids. This one was depicted like very real life situations where Sam and Nick really have to like navigate what it means to date a single dad who is really focused on being a dad and isn't one that's going to drop everything for a woman that he loves. Like his kid comes first. And Sam doesn't really know if she wants to be a mom in this relationship. So, this was a very interesting read because, again, it wasn't all rainbow and sunshines. It was these two really trying to navigate the situation of someone becoming a parent and then someone trying to make room for someone other than their kid in their life. I ended up rating this one 3 stars. It was an okay book. It's not one that's going to stick with me forever, but the content was very eye-opening and very different from the usual single daddy trope books that I've read in the past. So next up, I ended up listening to The Correspondent. This was my book club's group choice. Lots of ladies had read this book before, but some hadn't, but it ended up winning the vote in our poll. And I absolutely loved this book. I ended up giving it 4 stars. It was such a good book to listen to. Again, I feel like some books are better to listen to than they are to read, and this was one of those books. It was a little bit slow as you get into the format because it is literally a book written in the form of correspondence. So it's our main character's letters and emails that she is writing back and forth to all of the other characters in the story. So it takes a little bit of like figuring out who these people are and how they connect to her. But there were points where I was shocked, I was sad, I was scared. There was a lot of different emotions. And then by the end of the book, I felt very connected to the main character. It just made me want to go and give my grandparents a hug if they were still here. So it was definitely an enjoyable book, and I would recommend it if you're looking for something that's a little bit different and not your typical book, because this one, again, is written in that mixed media form of literally just letters and emails. So very cool. Then I picked up Broken Bonds by J. Bree. I have had this book on my shelf for the longest time. Like when I started my book buying journey like 3 years ago, I loved the cover of this book and I ended up only rating this 3 stars. This is a why choose where we have our main character who's kind of rejected her bonds with her mates. She has 5 of them, I believe there is. People have abilities. Sometimes they share what those abilities are, sometimes they don't. It just came across as very young. And so, as a 30-year-old, sometimes it's hard to read books that come across that way. But this is a larger series. I believe there's 6 books in the series. I feel like we're just tapping the surface of the potential of this series. So that's why I don't want to give up on it quite yet. I would like to read the second book to see if Ollie becomes a little less frustrating and the men become a little less mean to her. And hopefully the plot starts plotting and things get a little bit more palatable. Then I picked up book 2 in the Heavenly Body series by Amani Aru. I read Heavenly Bodies in January and absolutely loved it. It was so stinking good. I feel like it was actually the first book that I read in 2026. And I want to say I rated it like 4.5 stars. It was that good. So I was going into book 2 with high expectations. Ended up closing this book a little bit disappointed. I only rated this one 3 stars because I found I was really bored, and it might be because the 2 main characters get together and fall in love in book 1. So there's really not a lot of tension or yearning. In this book, Alara is trying to complete a mission. And so that's kind of what the first half of the book is. There's a lot of things that happen, but it's almost like there was too many things happening. And then we are introduced to a few new characters who there seems to be some tension between them and other characters, which kind of is what ended up getting me through this story. The last 100 pages, a lot went down information wise and world building wise. So I'm interested to see how things wrap up in book 3 and hope that maybe my love for Alara and Enzo will kind of get back to how they were in book 1. I've come to realize that I do enjoy fantasy books where we are given a little bit more yearning and tension, and where things don't just get right on to them getting together in book 1. I want to have to pick up book 2 thinking like, will they or won't they get together? And then the last book I read in February was Daggermouth. I read this one on my Kindle. This one was all over my page on social media, and I felt like I needed to be a part of the fandom because everyone was saying this was like 6 stars, the best book that they have read in a long time. And I unfortunately am not one of those people. I only rated it 3 stars because it's advertised as enemies to lovers, which it definitely is. But I feel like some people can write enemies to lovers really well, where we feel a lot of tension. Their relationship kind of builds to like, okay, they're enemies. Okay, they're getting along for a purpose. And then, okay, they are really attracted to each other and they cannot hold it off anymore. It's like we skipped that middle part of them learning about one another and that tension and yearning. It was like they're enemies, they meet and they try and kill each other, and then all of a sudden we're instantly attracted to each other. It was just like a switch flipped, and I feel like I just didn't enjoy that. I wanted there to be a little bit more tension and yearning and character building between and relationship building between the two of them. So overall, it was a very fun reading month. We had some great 5-star reads. We had some realizations of things I know that I like in my books and things that I don't. And that's the fun part about being a reader, is that your taste in books just continues to grow. And I'm always so fascinated by things that used to like get me every time and that I loved in a book. And now there are things that I'm like, I could actually do without that. So I've just loved not only seeing how other people enjoy reading by jumping on into the bookish community, but also learning new things about myself as a reader. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you kind of felt the same about any of these books, or maybe you felt differently and you want to convince me otherwise, let's chat about it in the comments below. If you're not doing so already, make sure that you are subscribed for more fun bookish content, and you can follow me on other platforms as well. I have all of that information in the details below. But whatever book you're reading today, I hope it brings you some kind of joy. Bye, guys.